It's the Beatles from the beginning to the end. It's their solo careers. It's their humor. It's their incredible music. It's the British invasion. It's their American adversaries. It's an historical musical education. It's the Beatles and a whole lot more. A Beatles fan's paradise. It's Beatles-A-Rama. Tune in. You'll love it.
Hi, everybody. James D. Jones here of the Magical Mystery Tour, Beatle Years and Beyond for Beatles-A-Rama Radio and TV. And I have an extra special, cool guest for you today. I believe you are going to become good for this guy and really enjoy everything he has to say and his insights, if you will. So let's do a proper introduction for our guest. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages and sizes, settle in because we're going to be taking a trip back to a time when radio just wasn't something you listened to. It was something you experienced. Yeah, experience. There was a time when every DJ had a personality. Every station had its own identity. The Beatles made you smile. Stories kept you hanging on to every word. And every time you turned on that dial, you discovered something new. Now, our guest today, well, he has spent decades keeping that magic alive. Known to listeners around the world as the Reverend Greg Schmidt, he is the creator and the driving force behind the UMRK Web Radio Internet Radio station. That proves that great radio never goes out of style, folks. Not at all. In fact, every Sunday night, listeners gather from around the globe for a 3-hour musical journey that begins with an incredible hour of Beatles classics, rare recordings, and live performances before opening the vault to some unforgettable music spanning from the 1950s through the 80s. No corporate playlist, no algorithms, no consultants deciding what you should hear, just one passionate broadcaster sharing the music he loves and inviting listeners to rediscover the songs they have forgotten that they loved too. Now, it's commercial free, it's listener supported, it's fueled entirely by passion. UMRK has been proving since 2001 that personality radio isn't dead. It just simply found a new home. And Greg has interviewed, met, and crossed paths with so many of the biggest names in popular music. But more importantly, he's become one of those rare broadcasters who understands that radio isn't just about transmitting songs. It's about creating memories, the stories behind the microphone, the people who shape the soundtrack of our lives. Ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages and sizes, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome the one and only Rev Greg Schmidt. And Greg, welcome to Beatles-A-Rama.
Hey, roll up. It's the James D Show. How are you?
So I hope I didn't embarrass you with that intro, but you impressed me and caught my attention. And well, I'm like, him and I should get together because we're very similar in our approaches and our sense of humor. And I do enjoy your humor a lot. Yeah. You're quirky like me in a good way, I hope. But what do you say we get some questions? Because our listeners are going to be curious to find out more about this guy, the Reverend Greg Schmidt.
Sure.
So let's see. With that being said, let me go ahead and get my questions ready. All right, questions. I'm gonna lay it on you, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. So here we go. All right, we'll start off with the Beatles in the beginning. Okay.
Who are they? Who are they?
Yeah, right. I've heard of them.
Yeah.
I've heard of them. I hear they're nice. Every Beatles fan can remember the moment. What was your moment? Where were you when the Beatles stopped just being another band and became basically part of your DNA?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm a second generation fan because I'll be the big 6-0 this year. So but so I didn't quite catch the
Right.
the first part of it, but I came in on the in the 70s. So
Right.
The first Beatle related song I ever heard was Uncle Albert by Paul McCartney.
Okay.
Cruising down, to Maryland in my dad's 1967 Chrysler, one of those things. And he did not like pop music at all. He was from another generation. He was from that generation that, Frank Sinatra wrote and recorded everything.
Right.
So, but he would sing along to that song, which caught my ear. And I said, he's singing along to WABC in a pop song in 1971, and I'm 5 years old. And I said, this is kind of cool. But actually, just to go back a little bit, my first love of music wasn't the Beatles. It was Johnny Cash.
Oh, yeah. Good
The
one.
Johnny Cash show just captured me, just the sound of all that. So
the TV show, yeah.
Right. And then I found the Beatles later because my brother was a little bit older than me. He's like 7 years older. So he would have the collection of Lou Reed albums and some Beatle albums and Stones albums and and David Peel albums.
David Peel.
Yeah, which is another story for later. So we'll get into that.
Yes, right.
But so I found the Beatles in the 70s, and then the Red and Blue albums hit me. It was I did a school project in grade school, and they said, "What do you want to do it on?" And my buddy said, "Hey, we're a team. Let's do it on the Beatles." I'm like, I don't know anything about them. I said, "What do I know about the Beatles?" He says, "Let me loan you my Red and Blue albums." So loan me the albums. I said, "Now we got to go to the library and look this stuff up and see what's going on." And when I opened up my first Beatle book, I said, "This is not just music. This is transcendent everything." And I'm a little kid, but I said, there's something going on here. And I just, in one book after another, and it just never stopped, and thanks to the Beatles, it shaped my entire life, my family, my kids, their names, everything, all my friends. It's just, 6 degrees of Beatles separation from the beginning. So,
love it. I love it. Well, you and I think that's why we get along so good. I'm 60. I just turned 60 not too long ago. And I was not the first generation Beatles fan, but the second generation, right? And I think second generation fans should be given some credit because we really were spoiled rotten. Your first generation had to wait for releases. As second generation fans, we could pick and choose whatever we wanted.
That's right. Right.
And we find everything, and we didn't have to wait. You know, the only thing we had to wait for was payday.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you what I did. I would go to my mom and say, "I need lunch money for school." And she would give me a couple of bucks for lunch money. And then I go to my dad and I said, "I need a couple of bucks for lunch money for school." By the end of the week, I had that Walls and Bridges album. I had Abbey Road. And 1 week after another, I bought an album or two till I caught up on the entire thing.
Nice.
And, so I fleeced my parents out of lunch money. Didn't eat. I would pack like something where didn't eat lunch at all. But I said, by the end of the week, and my record store was cool. They would put the bootlegs under the counter for me.
Oh, nice.
And they said, "Oh, he's coming in," but so.
Well, then it sounds like we are really similar. You're a vinyl guy too.
Oh yeah.
I love vinyl. I just do. So speaking of vinyl, Greg, if you walked into your record collection blindfolded, what Beatles album would show, the most fingerprints from being played over and over and over again?
No doubt it's Abbey Road.
Oh, that is a good one.
Yeah, Abbey Road is my I mean, it's hard to
Yeah.
pick a favorite Beatle album. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
But
Or
you know,
I hate it when people say, "What's your favorite Beatles song, James?
Yeah, yeah.
What's your favorite
You know?
Beatles?" I'm like, it's like asking, "Who's your favorite kid?" You
Right.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
My answer for those crazy questions is, well, it depends on what I'm feeling that day. There's
Right,
days
yeah.
where I'm helter skelter.
Mhm.
There's other days where I'm come together. There's other days where she loves you. It just depends,
Yeah.
what mood I'm in and what I'm, in
Right.
the mood for.
Yeah.
So
And-
it changes, it fluctuates. So you're not stuck in the same rut all the time, So let me ask you this. Okay, we've established the record. Has your favorite Beatle changed over the years? And I mean, what does that say about how you've changed?
The evolution of my favorite Beatle?
Yeah.
Well, Paul's always been my favorite musically. Now I have different categories of favorite Beatles. Now, personally,
that.
Paul's not my favorite personal Beatle. He's my favorite
Right.
musical Beatle.
Okay.
You know, my favorite sort of Beatle personality-wise was always George.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So
Nice.
yeah, George was
Well,
George was my guy there.
I always felt that, this is just my opinion, folks. All right. I always felt that George Harrison was truly the musician of the Beatles.
Yeah, yeah. He cared about his guitars, and he was meticulous about certain things. There was, where John was like, he would throw things around and not really care about them, and just, but which
Throw
is
them
cool.
against the wall and see what stuck.
Yeah. Everybody's different, but I kind of had that same George mentality where I got to take care of these guitars, everything's got to be just right. I can't toss it against the wall and leave it,
Well, I tell you, one interview I saw with Paul, I'm sure you've heard it too, is where they were talking about the Beatles song from Hard Day's Night, "And I Love Her." And he's like, without George, we wouldn't have had that do, 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 do.
Right.
He's
The
like,
whole song.
big
The whole
part
song.
of the song.
Yeah.
So
That's the hook of that song. Yeah.
exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
George, to me, I mean, I love them all. I love them all for all various reasons. I started off as a John guy. Okay. Always admired Paul and his music abilities, but I think John and George were like my go-to, because with George being so good with the music and the naughty chords and the lead guitar bits, and then John with his personality, I guess, and his lyrics. But you're right. You kind of do an evolution, and it changes in what mood you're in.
Yeah. And we change,
Yeah.
A 60-year-old is different than a 20-year-old.
Right.
The only thing is
Boy,
we're
ain't
still
that true.
collecting all the stuff.
Oh,
It's still out there buying it.
Yeah.
It never ends.
That's the only bad thing about being an older fan, is one, trying to find what you're looking for, because you have the majority of everything out there, and you and I have connections beyond normal people. And right. And so we find things. So it's harder for us to really find things we want, and what we do want, we definitely know, and we're always looking. Right.
Then you start changing. You start chasing the things that, maybe that doesn't exist. Maybe no one really knows about that. Where did that come from? But now
I'm still looking for a video of Paul McCartney's and Wings Glasgow concert from 1979, December 17th.
No,
I know it's out there.
We should talk.
Okay.
Offline.
Okay. There you go. Yes, we don't want to do anything. Well, let me ask you this. So we're talking about favorite Beatles. If John, Paul, George, and Ringo walked into your studio tomorrow, which one would make you the most nervous to interview?
Let's see. That's a good question. I've met Paul. I've worked with Ringo.
Right.
And in the moment, it doesn't really hit you. So just like I'm talking to you now, and then we finish our conversation and I walk out of the room and I have to sit down, and I said, did I just talk to Paul McCartney? Yeah. Did I just meet the guy who wrote Eleanor Rigby and Penny Lane and Let It Be and Hey Jude? And I said, I need a minute. You know? So,
it hits you all at once.
Yeah, it hits you all at once. Ringo is not that way. Ringo is more easily accessible and affable, and my relationship with Ringo is a little bit different. Paul was just, you know, sort of an acquaintance kind of meeting here and there, but Ringo I actually worked with, so it was a different sort of dynamic. But I, you know, it's just incredible after you, even when you talk to Ringo, and it's like, and you walk out of the room, you're like, did I just talked to him, you know? So it doesn't really hit you right away. It's kind of like everything goes in slow motion.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, but, I get it.
Yeah.
I get
but
it.
to get back to your question, if they walked in here, which one? I don't know. You seem to have, like, you know, something in common with all of them, where you find some sort of, you know,
common ground
and connection, you know, especially John, because John loved to collect stuff.
Yes.
You know, if somebody brought John a recording he hadn't heard from the BBC or something like that, he would go out of his way. Yeah, he would go out of his way and take something off the wall for you and, you know, give it to you. You know, he was just,
he gave away his own butcher to that one for a bootleg record.
He gave it to Dave Morrell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I used to bowl with him in the 80s, Dave Morrell. We used to have a little bowling team, a little Beatle bowling team. So, yeah, but
what a story, man.
That's a story for another day, but, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, being a second generation fan, I kind of missed out on the John thing a little bit, because there is no doubt, being as close as I am to New York City and that whole crew and all those people. And my uncle was John's assistant engineer. Oh. So there is no doubt I would have gotten somewhere near John to say, bet you've never seen this before. I bet you haven't heard this in 30 years or something like that. But the timing was bad, unfortunately, you know, but you know.
Well, well, I tell you, to me, I would have no problem interviewing any of them. And I've spoken to Ringo, I've spoken to Paul, but you know, the thing is, I think John would make me a wee bit nervous, because you just never know what John Lennon you were having at that moment.
Yeah, but because he continually changed his opinion on everything. You could catch him one year, and then the next year he was, you know, totally different. But
that's the fun thing about it. And you know, someone asked him about, they're like, why do you flip flop? He's like, listen, mate, that's how I felt back then. Yeah. But I've had time now, and I see things a wee bit differently. So I get it. I get it.
Right.
All right, Greg, what's one Beatles song that still catches you off guard emotionally after all these years?
Golden Slumbers.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That is a good
Hearing
one.
it live, and that's like that's a moment where it's time machine back, you know.
And what a great opening line. Once there was a way to get back homeward.
Right. Which Paul didn't write.
Really?
Right. Well, it was from
I know.
Yeah, it was from the poem.
Yes.
Right.
I didn't know that was part of the poem.
Right.
Oh,
maybe it was. Cool. Yeah.
Well, you're right. Golden Slumbers.
Yeah.
It's always funny though when you see the memes where it starts off all nice and soft, and then he goes golden slumbers. So it's a lullaby to wake you up, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
You know?
Now, earlier we were talking about, you know, collections and chasing music. So let me ask you this. At what point did collecting records stop being, you know, a hobby and started becoming closer to an obsession?
I got obsessed pretty early, because I got into the whole film and video thing back in the late 70s. I was 12 years old when I got into it. You know, I begged my dad for a VCR so I could, you know, tape things off TV. And he says, these things are $30 a tape. He says, how this habit. How long is this going to last? You know, 1978, $30 for a blank videotape for 1 hour. You know, this is a collection thing that you're not going to do. So, but yeah, so I kind of combined everything, just buying the records every week, but getting like deep into the film and video like really early. So that really catapulted the rest of my collecting, and so
I'm cracking up with your dad. How long is this going to last?
Yeah, of course.
That is a typical parent thing to say to a kid, isn't it?
Right. You know, and he would say, "Come on, Paul McCartney never wrote a song in his life." I said, "Really, Dad?" I said, "Who wrote them?" He says, "Frank Sinatra wrote all those songs." I said, "Okay, well, you know, I'm glad you believe that." So, you know, well, he was my dad was born in 1915, so you got to figure out the generational gap here. He didn't get that. He wasn't progressive enough to get the whole hip rock and roll thing in the 60s.
It was alien to him.
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, but
but starting, you gave him a run for his money, though, didn't you?
I tried. I certainly did. Yeah, I certainly did. But
starting off with lunch money,
it did. You know, but once I started taping things off TV and getting that video collection going, and it is interesting just to go back for a second here. One of the first things, if not the first thing I ever taped, was a little Pete Best special on the Dick Clark show from 1978. Came on like midnight. Threw it on my beta tape. Recently, I threw that up on my radio page, on the Facebook social media page, and I put it up about 2 o'clock in the morning. I said about 40 people are gonna really think this is fun, with Pete Best and all these other people playing together in this giant jam session. By 9 o'clock the next morning, my phone blew up when I woke up, and I said, I had 900,000 hits and views in 7 hours. And I said, what happened? Where did this come from? So as I was sort of trying to figure that out, I saw that May Pang, an old friend of mine, had reposted it. So went to and then it went to everybody's page, Eddie Money's page, with So within 2 days, I had 4 million views on this video. My first video that I ever taped on TV, 4 million views, and went viral without being an influencer or anything like that. So I sent May a message and I said, "What kind of evil sorcery do you subscribe to?" I said, that you have the power to do this. She says, "No need to thank me." So
I love May. We've interviewed May. She was such a great interview. So good.
Yeah, I go way back with her. I worked on her movie and worked on her books. I helped edit her books. I did her websites. Yeah, so May and I go way back to the bowling days of the 1980s.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Well, I like hearing that. Now, let me ask you this. All right, we're going to get a little serious here. What, Greg, is your holy grail of your record collection? You know, the one record that took forever to find.
Oh, well, that's a tough question, because, you know, everybody wants to say the Butcher cover and
right.
But I don't know if I really have one.
Really?
Yeah. Not when it comes to record collecting. I kind of like, you know, I would get the imports and I would get whatever you could, which was readily available. So, I mean, I never really went spending thousands of dollars to find that one record, you know.
That would be a lot of lunch money.
It was. But I've done that in other areas with auctions and certain things where, you know, I said, well, I want to buy that acetate, or, you know, I want to buy this, you know. So I've got right sitting next to me, I've got a Paul McCartney studio tape. And I bought it mainly because he signed the box. Him and Linda had signed the box. I bought it from that wonderful organization in England called Trax. But it happened to be a different take of Ballroom Dancing that was on the album, which was the tape in the box. And I said, "Oh, this is great." I said, not only did I get the autograph, but sometimes, you know, I'll spend a little bit on things like that. It's been a while since I really like attacked the sort of vinyl kind of like, I really have to find that, you know. But now it's so readily available.
Oh yeah.
That, you know, back then you had to hunt.
Right.
You had to go to the record stores, and, you know, if you were lucky enough to, you know, find something at a convention or things like that, you know,
Right.
you really had to look
Right.
for it, which was half the fun of it. But now you just,
Well, I
just
always
pull it up,
enjoyed
man.
finding things in the wild. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
my goal is to find a butcher in the wild. That would be
Everybody's
beyond
looking for 'em. Yeah.
crazy. But you know, I'm always looking for like the first edition version of introducing the Beatles on VJ.
Right. Yeah.
And there's so many variations of it, but I'd be happy just with the first edition of it. A lot of folks don't even realize there's two different versions of it, but you know, us fans, we kind of do, so it's good. But yeah, there's so besides vinyl and that, what's something that stands out in your collection? Like, for instance, you were just talking about that box you bought with Paul McCartney and Linda's autograph with a different version of Ballroom Dancing from Tug of War.
Right.
What else kind of stands out in your mind going, man, am I glad I got that when I did?
Oh, there's so much stuff, not just record collecting and stuff, but film.
Yeah.
There's so much film, and you know, and when you find something like that where it's like, wow, I didn't even think this existed, you know. And now it's a different day and age now, because if you come up with something and you say, well, here's a Beatle demo or an acetate or something like that, and there's it's AI, come on, don't bother me with it, leave me alone. I said, well, I work in production. I said, I know a little bit about what AI is. I said, you know, so I said, these tapes predate AI by many, many decades.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff that I wouldn't even know where to begin with, you know, collecting things. So, yeah. I mean, well, I love autographs. My studio is all done in celebrity autographs. So whenever I meet somebody or, you know, or work with somebody and stuff, always at the end of it, I'm like, would you mind, you know, signing something? And, you know, so, but and then you run out of wall space, and it's like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to put it?
Yeah.
You know, where are you going to put it all?
The Beatle room is full.
You know, well, but you still keep getting more and more and more. And,
you do.
You know, I said someday I'll expand, you know, and I just made a deal with my kids. I said, look, when I go, I said, just pass it on to your kids, or, you know, don't throw it out, you know.
Yeah. Don't sell it at the garage sale for $5, please.
No, you know, or give it. I'd rather you give it to somebody who appreciates it. So, you know. Well,
speaking of meeting all these people throughout your career, and you were in a position where you got to meet and mingle with a lot of folks. You know, you've met some incredible musicians over the years. So let me ask you, who completely surprised you by being nothing like you expected?
I would say Donovan.
Donovan, really?
Yeah. Donovan turned out in the end to be my oldest son's godfather. So long story on how that one happened, but when I met Donovan, I was doing a Beatle interview for like just like a newspaper sort of rag kind of thing that we did way back in the early 90s. It was called Beatles Video Digest. It wasn't, you know, probably had like 8 subscribers. It wasn't anything, you know. Some of the bigger collectors will remember it because they, you know, we did some things. So I sat down to interview Donovan in Philadelphia, and I got a press pass to go in, and I wanted to interview him. So, but it was mainly Beatle questions because it's for a Beatle publication. So I sat down to interview him, and as soon as I sat down, the furniture was so old in the green room, I fell through the chair. And I was stuck in this broken old down chair from like 1958. And he says, well, we certainly can't do the interview like this now, can we? And he helped me out of the chair. We became instant friends and extended family. Yeah. So, but the thing is with Donovan, you think, well, yeah, he's trippy, folky, hippie, dippy kind of thing. He's got the wildest sense of humor. The darkest, wildest sense of humor.
I like that better.
That would get you in trouble.
Oh no.
You know. So yeah, I mean, he's got a very light filter on what he says around people sometimes, and
Right.
it's just something you don't expect from what you think he is. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So
all right.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Donovan, I've always enjoyed Donovan. I met Donovan when he came to, way back when it was just called Beatle Fest in Chicago. Donovan was a guest there, and we got to talk for a bit. Wonderful guy, great stories, good storyteller too.
Yeah. Well, for the Chicago Beatle Fest, my ex-wife was his assistant for that.
Oh.
So he was sending me messages over when he was going on stage. He says, I need the lyrics for something. And I was taking pictures of lyrics, trying to get them over to him. And this might have been pre-cell phone. I can't even remember how I got it to him. I don't know if I faxed it over to him or what. And he says, I need the lyrics for this and I need the lyrics for that. And I'm here in New Jersey putting lyrics together for him in Chicago.
Right.
So, but yeah, he had, last time he came over here, and he's just so casual, where he kicks his boots off, he takes one of my guitars, he lays on the floor and plays. And my neighbors come over and they said, isn't that the guy who wrote Mellow Yellow? And I said, yeah, that's the same guy, and so he looks at my neighbors, he says, they're a little freaked out, aren't you? It's just and people are in out of here all the time like that, all the different sort of pop stars and things like that. I mean, going back to the 70s, I have this trend of being in the right place at the right time with the right family members. And I mean, there's the person like in the room. So, and it's like, well, just very, very odd. It's all about timing.
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up, how you're going to end up in these places, and there they are. So just, it just happens.
It's funny because when you say that, it instantly reminds me about my kids when they were little. And I've been in radio 30 some odd years, and people would come by, and my kids thought it was just normal. Doesn't everyone have this in their house? So like George's sister Louise, she was like a grandma to my kids, always bringing trinkets and candies to them, right? Joey Mullen, Denny Lane, Sam Leach. I mean, I just had people in and out all the time. And then when they got older and they realized not everyone has this. And I guess when that bubble burst, they're like,
right.
I had no idea when I was a kid that's who that was. I'm like,
oh yeah.
So when you said that story, it's like, yeah, I've been there, done
and
that.
then you look back on it growing up with these things, and then you end up associating with the people. I mean, I grew up on Denny Lane's music and Joey Mullen's music, and here I am, just hanging out in the car with these guys. And I said, you guys are going to get me arrested. Joey, especially, Joey, especially,
you get those
and
two
Denny,
together.
Yeah, I know. I had some
God.
experiences where I said, come on, guys. I said, I like my freedom. I said, I don't need a lawyer. I don't want to do this and stuff. I ended up in the Vegas desert hiking with Denny Lane across like a bunch of red rocks and stuff. And he's like, I said, well, I'm coming out to Vegas for a couple of days. He says, well, I live out there. So he says, just, I'll meet you in the desert. And he did. And the thing with Denny is he doesn't need anything to survive. He doesn't need water. He doesn't need food.
Yeah.
He just needs his hiking stick and some boots. And here I am dressed like I'm coming out of Brooklyn. And I said, but it's all great experiences with these people. And, I miss them dearly, Joey and Denny and everybody.
They're more than friends. They're family.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I always felt.
Yeah.
And I could tell you, you'll appreciate this. It was a year after George Harrison had passed away. And in Chicago at the Hard Rock Cafe, no, House of Blues. I'm sorry. I get them all mixed up. Chicago House of Blues. There was a tribute to George Harrison, and it had all these people. I mean, big stars, Denny Lane, Joey Mullen, part of the original Wings horn sections was there. Toto. I mean, the list, Pete Best, Sam Leach was there. Just a whole bunch of people. It was a big to-do, and I got to MC it. It was great. And what we did is we went to this one place called Nico's in Bridgeview, Illinois. Hello. And we would do rehearsals for the House of the Blues things. And, you know, Sam Leach, great guy, miss him. And he comes up to me, goes, James. I'm like, yes. I've arranged for you to talk to Pete Best. I'm like, oh, great. And he's like, but you can't talk about the Beatles. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to ask him?
Right, yeah.
Pete, let me ask you, how many times do you chew your food before you swallow?
Right.
You know, I mean, so what I did is I'm like, hey, Pete, you know, back in the day, you used to sing the lead on, you know, a couple songs. What was your, and he's like, oh man, I would do Matchbox. I do Wooden Ships. And, you know, it broke the ice. And I got to meet Rogue at that rehearsal as well. So we planted seeds during that time. But with all that going on, running late, of course, is Joey Mullen and Denny Lane. And they're in cahoots. And they are nothing but trouble.
They're a tandem. They're a tandem of trouble, those two. Yeah.
And I ended up at their table because I was doing interviews and stuff. And it was a lot of drinking that night, a lot of drinking. And it finally got really late. And we're due at the House of the Blues like early next morning. And it's like, I don't know, it's after 2:00. And the waitress comes by, you know, who wants, what else do you guys need for drinks? And I'm like embarrassed because I'm like, I got to start sobering up or I'm going to be so hungover the next day. So I tried to nonchalantly ask for a hot tea. And Denny heard me say hot tea. He goes, hot tea? He's like, actually, that's a pretty good idea. Hot tea for me too. And then Joey's like, yeah, that sounds pretty good too, mate. We better get some hot tea. And it was just funny. But Denny and Joey, great stories, great storytellers with a lot of great stories. But Denny, he was a rascal. And you know him.
Yeah.
I was at Beatlefest, and my wife was expecting me to come home, and I'm on the phone in Denny's room, and I'm like, well, I said, I'm going to stick around for a wee bit longer, and then I'll be heading out. And Denny, as loud as he could be so my wife could hear, James, why don't you stay another day? We'll put everything on Lupito's bill. I got your dinner. I got your party. I got everything you need. Come on, man. I want you to stay with me. And my wife is like, do not listen to Denny. You are coming home. I know he's your friend. No, you're coming home. And I'm like, okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye. But yeah, Denny was just such a memory. That guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was
in a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was performing with a Beatles tribute band called American English out of Chicago. And I walked up to him, and he was on the stage playing guitar in the summer breeze, right? And you could tell wherever he was, it was beautiful. It was magical. And then when I got on stage and I walked up to him, because it's just rehearsals, right? And it was just me and him. He turns around, he goes, oh, don't say anything. Give me a second. And he's like, James D. Jones, Magical Mystery Tour, Beatle Years and Beyond. I'm like,
what a memory, because he sees so many people and interviewed so many times, and people always running into him, and he's like, he would never forget, like special moments that you had. Yeah. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, well, I mean, sadly, so many of these great people are just gone. Yeah. I mean. Harry Nilsson, going back with him. I mean, Harry was, a lovely, lovely, lovely man, and, he's another one without a filter. So,
Harry, he is.
Harry said quite a few things, but so one day I'll have to tell you the story about Harry, and, we took him out to White Castle. And he had never been to a White Castle in his life. I'll tell you the story real quick. If you can edit it if you want.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So Harry's coming out of the Beatlefest elevator about 4 a.m. because Harry didn't sleep at Beatlefest in the 80s.
No,
he didn't. So he's brandy in one hand and whatever it was. So he says, well, what are you guys doing? I said, well, we're hungry. We're headed out to White Castle to get something to eat. He says, I had never had that before. So. My buddy and I take Harry out, take him to White Castle in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey on Route 17. And he says, what do you order? 5 of these things? I said, nah, you're probably going to want a few more of these. So he must have ordered like 2 dozen sliders. And he gets about halfway through them and his head hits the table.
Oh.
He's out. Now, my buddy and I are wet and dripping. We're not like 140 pounds each.
Right.
You know? And I said, Harry weighs more than both of us. So I said, you think he's dead?
Oh, God.
You know? I said, no. I said, I think he's just sleeping. So we managed to get Harry back in the car. We drag him to the car. We get him to the hotel. We throw him on the bed. And he's out, completely out. It's like carrying a corpse. So he says, well, what do we do now? I said, well, this is a moment we really can't forget. So we ended up taking all these pictures of Harry dead on the bed.
Oh, gosh.
So, which
it
I'll
sounds
send
like
you,
a movie.
I'll send you the pictures. They're quite interesting. But
I love it. I love
so,
it. Harry was so great.
Yeah,
Man,
and then literally like an hour and a half later, I'm still awake, walking around the hotel. It's like 6 a.m. And there's Harry. He says, "Is the bar open?"
Yeah,
like nothing
Harry.
ever happened. You know, like nothing ever happened. But yeah, so I could talk about Harry all day. I mean, there's just so much. We did some recording with him. We did, you know, there's a lot of things that we did with Harry, and he's really a special person. Yeah. So
I was devastated when he passed away, and I can remember thinking to myself, what an amazing book he could have written with all his stories and encounters.
Well, here's the good part. He started writing that book. He didn't get all the way through it, but he got a lot of good stories into it. And my buddy was compiling the book.
Oh,
so
okay.
what he did was he did a hard copy, like double space typed. And he said, can you make a PDF out of this? And this is just going back a few years ago. I said, I said, so he FedExes me out Harry's book, and it's literally crumbling. You know, there's, you know, but there's, you know, brandy stains all over it and things like that. So very carefully, I go to Kinko's and I run it through the PDF machine, you know, where they just feed it through. So, and I ended up with this beautiful book of Harry, and the only person who has a copy of it is his wife.
Oh, wow.
So, and there's all these John Lennon stories in it, Keith Moon stories,
Ringo,
all Ringo. And I mean, Ringo was his best friend. So there's all kind of crazy stories. And I have all these wonderful pictures of Harry and Ringo that haven't been published.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, so there's a lot of Harry stuff. I mean, I could, you know, we could do a whole podcast on Harry someday and just,
we'll save it for our next one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
let me ask you this. Out of all the people you've met, and I know you've met a zillion of them, who do you think, what celebrity probably had the best sense of humor?
Ooh. Some of them were quirky. So, you know, sense of humor. Burton from the Guess Who.
Yes.
Burton Cummings from the Guess Who. Now, I don't know if it comes down to, you know, sorry, Burton. I don't know if it's ADD. I don't know what's going on there and stuff, but he could be sitting down singing you a beautiful song, and then immediately go into a Bugs Bunny voice and start telling you a story about something else.
That's nice.
And how do you assimilate? How do you react? You know, and then he'll go back
bewildered.
Very, very, you know, very odd, great sense of humor and stuff. Yeah. But he's one of the quirkiest humor kind of things, I think.
Love it.
So, you know, Ringo's got that very dry sense of humor.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So,
yes, indeed.
And which people can think it's a little off-putting.
Yeah.
You know,
or take it the wrong way.
Take it the wrong way if you don't know him and stuff.
Very dry.
So, yeah, very dry. So,
but that's half the charm there, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Celebrity with the best handshake.
celebrity with the worst handshake, Ringo.
Ringo.
Yeah. Ringo's
Dead fish.
Dead fish, very British dead fish handshake. It was almost like shaking, like, Margaret Thatcher's hand. That just, and I'm like, and I commented on it afterwards. I said that was absolutely not to him, but I said that was the worst handshake I think I've ever had. Just like very sort of timid, But I guess that's not. I guess it's the Anglo way. I don't know.
That's it. Right.
So, but
all right.
Who had the best handshake? That's a good question. Johnny Cash had a good one.
Ooh, I bet he did.
Johnny Cash had one. Now there's a man who was intimidating in a nice way.
Yeah, in a good way.
When you looked at Johnny Cash, it was like Mount Rushmore standing in front of you.
He's the man.
What do you say to Johnny Cash? And I was more comfortable talking to Paul McCartney than I was Johnny Cash. I was just, I said,
All right.
Well, son, what size shoe do you wear? 9.5. I got a 13. I got you beat. Just.
Well, speaking of that, what artists made you feel like a fan again instead of a guy asking and interviewing with questions?
A fan. I'm not. I've interviewed so many people. Mm-hmm. You mean with interviews?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you become a fan and you're not the guy just doing an interview asking questions, but like a fanboy, if you will, or one of those guys.
Oh, you mean somebody who didn't start off as a fan and then sort of.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Who's great that way? Bryan Adams.
Ooh.
The Canadian Bryan Adams.
Yeah. Canadian. You're right. Right. Gotta say that.
Yes. Very proud Canadian. And I was always under the impression where I never really sort of dug into Bryan Adams' music. Mm-hmm. Summer of '69, Cuts Like a Knife, those sort of the hits and things like that. Yeah. And I got some tickets for a Bryan Adams show, and I said, and I got a chance to meet him afterwards, and I said, I'll go to Bryan Adams. It's fine. Absolutely blew me away as one of the best shows of my entire life.
Really?
I have never seen a show that good.
So you went in there knowing some songs, not really a big fan.
Not really a casual fan. Casual. And
walked out.
I walked out saying, I have never seen a show and somebody worked the audience that good. Wow. From the hits to rockabilly to the musicianship to, and his rapport with the audience was unparalleled. So after I got to a chat with him after the show, and I said, Bryan, it's a pleasure to meet you. I said, I walked in here as like, Bryan Adams, he's okay. He's all right. I said, I'm walking out of here. I said, you've got a new fan on your hands. And he says, you're a musician, right? I said, yeah. He says, I appreciate it, and we went, we had a nice conversation about things. And I said, that man, if you haven't got a chance to see Bryan Adams' concert, check it out, because I know you would absolutely, from beginning to end, where he pulls these old Gretsch 6120s out.
Yeah.
He's got this thing going. I said, what a show. Just incredible. Blew me away. Yeah. Wow, okay. One of my top 10 shows of all time. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty impressive to say that.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, Greg, have you ever walked away from meeting someone and just thinking to yourself, nobody's ever going to believe this story?
Well, I mean, most people don't. Well, I kind of run in those circles. So if you meet a Beatle, it's not the it's not the end of the world, because you kind of associate with the people around them, and so you can
the circle, if you will.
You can work your way in certain circumstances, even though they're insulated beyond belief, especially Paul.
Right,
but. So the question was again,
a celebrity that you've met and you thought to yourself, no one's ever going to believe this happened.
Yeah. Nothing too incredible. I mean, you know, everything is sort of even keel. You know, but I think it depends more on, you know, the circumstance of how you're meeting people and things like that. Because I mean, I've run into celebrities before where, you know, it wasn't an interview situation. I said, oh, you know, there's somebody on the street, and you know, it's like, oh, it's, you know, Peter Tork from the Monkees. Let's go say hello to him. Yeah, you know, and sometimes it doesn't go as well as you want.
Right.
You know? There's another guy with a strange sense of humor, and you don't know if he's being serious or he's not being serious and stuff. So, but you know, I knock wood, everything's been really good. You know,
well,
sometimes you know, with you know, as you know, interviewing people is a technique where you have to pull things out of people. Right. And you know, and when I first started the FM show back in way before the internet show, I would do like interviews and just pile them in like shows. I would do a 2-hour show a week, and it's like, well, now I have 4 interviews to do for this show, and I would bring Donovan on, or I would bring, you know, Flo and Eddie on, and different people, and sometimes people would give you the one-word answers, and you're like, well, I just went through my whole question list in 18 seconds. Now what do I do? So now I got to think on the fly because I'm live. I'm not taping this. And I said, I have to figure this out. And you know, I had on your feet. For example, I had Gary Lewis on from Gary Lewis and the Playboys. And nice enough guy, very nice. And he gave me one-word answers for like the first 2 minutes. He said, yeah, no, yeah. No. Now, meanwhile, I said, I have to do 20 minutes with him. And I said, I'm done. I'm out of questions. So I said, tell me about your dad, Jerry Lewis. I said, was he any influence in the music business with you? And he wouldn't shut up for the next hour. Oh, he just went off.
Find the right question.
Yeah, he just went off. And it turned out to be one of the best interviews I had ever done after the first 2 minutes. So he just rolled with it, and he gave me all the insights on business of being in, you know, how his dad prevented all these things with accountants and things like that, all about the music business side of things. Nice. So
pleasant surprise on that.
Yeah. So I mean, there were, you know, people like that. You know, Todd Rundgren was a little bit of an interesting interview because in person, Todd is great. Yeah, Todd is great, but sometimes Todd doesn't want to be bothered doing phone ins. Oh, you know, so and he's like, well, let's just get this done. And you know, I had a series of questions that I wanted to ask him. He's like, yeah, I don't care about that. Ask me another one. I don't care about that. Ask me another one. But in person, fabulous. But you know, there's a bit of a disconnect sometimes where you're doing the phoners with, you know, with certain people. But you know, everybody's different. Yeah, no, you're right. You know, having you know, Flo and Eddie on with Mark Volman. Now, that guy was funny. You're talking about, you know, something you don't expect. So I interviewed him he was in his kitchen with his dogs barking all over the place. And I had him live. He's live on the show. I'm live on FM doing the show with him. And I'm asking him about John Lennon and Frank Zappa and the Fillmore and things like that. And I said, well, what was the experience like being on stage with John and Yoko and, you know, and the Mothers and Frank Zappa and stuff? He says, oh, the Fillmore. He says, oh, excuse me, the dogs are barking. Shut up. You know. So he says, yeah, the Fillmore. Let me take you back to the Fillmore. He says, they put Yoko in that black bag. Remember when they put her in that black bag and they chained her up in that black bag and she was howling? They put the microphone next to her and stuff. He says, if I had a padlock, she'd still be in that bag. So, you know, here's an interview I loved that I didn't quite expect where it was going to go. It was Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim, he was sort of, he's very polite, one of the most polite people you'll ever met, but he was also very opinionated about things. Oh, so, and he was going into the whole Paul and Linda relationship with with Jane Asher and the
Oh,
whole
boy.
thing, you know. And he says, if you don't mind me, he says, expostulating momentarily, my friend. I said, expostulate momentarily, Tiny. I said, the floor is yours. Do whatever you want. And he says, it's under my impression. He says, and it's my impression. He says, and no one else's. He says that Linda McCartney is holding on to Paul like Uncle Sam holds on to Fort Knox. And I said, oh, God. I said, I think we have to go to a commercial.
Yeah.
It's just, you know.
We'll be right back.
Well, yeah. So many good interviews over the years, you know.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
All right. Was there ever a backstage moment when you looked around and thought to yourself, how in the world did I end up here?
All the time. All the time. I'm always not only grateful, but amazed that the timing is right sometimes, that, you know, I end up in certain places that happens. I don't know, what do they call it? Synchronicity of, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the problem.
Luck. Yeah,
luck,
something.
whatever it is. And
right place, right time.
I do it all the time. All the time, you know. If I'm in the room with Paul McCartney, I said, how the hell did I end up here? You know, it's just, how did I end up here?
Well, you know what? Let's talk about meeting Paul McCartney.
Yes.
Lay out the story. How did it happen? How did you get in? And how did it go?
Well, the first time, it's all about who you know.
Right.
Right. So, you know, if you don't know people, you don't get anywhere.
You don't get anywhere.
Who are we?
Get past
you
the
know,
door.
That's right. We're not getting in anywhere unless you, you know, you got a connection somewhere. So, a buddy of mine from working in Los Angeles over at, it was KLSX at the time. He was a former program director from Philly and moved out there. And he said, I'm going to, I've got a meeting with Paul McCartney at ABC in New York at Rockline. He said, do you want to go? I said, do I want to go? I said, absolutely. I said, so he says, well, I'm in LA. So he said, I'm going to take the red eye out and flying out to Newark. He says, pick me up. We'll go see Paul. And he takes the red eye out. You know, I pick him up and we go to ABC, and Paul walks in without Linda. It's with Hamish at the time, Hamish and Robbie McIntosh. It's for Off the Ground. So they're promoting that. And Paul is very, very flirty with all the girls. It's not many people there. It's probably maybe 7 or 8 people together and stuff. And he kind of like brushes right by us, and he's like, hey girls, how you doing, ladies? You know, he turns on this charm. So he's just, you know, he's just Paul and stuff. So finally, you know, I get a chance to actually have the big meeting with him. And what do you say to Paul McCartney? I mean, you know, I got a couple of things for him to sign, you know, and some pictures and a handshake and stuff. So my buddy who flew out from LA said, look, you take my picture with Paul. I don't care what you do. You get my picture with Paul. And he says, I'm flying back to LA. That's it. He says, just take my picture. He says, I'm getting you in, you know. Yeah. You take the picture. So everybody gets in the picture. I take maybe 5 or 6 pictures of Paul with everybody. And I'm like, you know, and he's very happily taking pictures with, you know, with our little crew and stuff, and said, and I want to hand my camera to somebody. I said, all right, let me get a picture with Paul. And Paul says, hey, we got to go now. I'll see you.
Oh, no.
out the door. I never got my picture with him.
Oh.
So, you know,
that
I mean,
hurt.
You know, so.
But you got to meet him. You got to talk to him.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and it happened again. You know, I never got to the picture stage. And now he's like, oh, now he doesn't want to take pictures with anybody.
Right.
But, you know.
I like with Ringo and autographs.
Right. So when I got my photo op with Ringo, and I kind of held him there. I'm like, get the picture. I said, take the picture. So I said, have you got it? And he started singing to me, and he's singing, oh baby, she's got it. And he's singing, you know, and I said, good, you got the picture. So, you know. I didn't want to lose my photo op with Ringo. You know? I said, how am I going to tell the grandkids? Oh yeah, you met a couple of Beatles. Where are the pictures, Dad?
Yeah. Show us the
know?
proof.
Yeah.
Well, I missed my opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, what's the funniest thing that's ever happened while you're interviewing a celebrity besides the Donovan thing?
Yeah, that was probably, well, that's the funny thing that happened to me.
Right.
So, not too many funny things happened with a celebrity, I don't think. Not really.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Everything's been, like I said, I'm hanging in there. It's all been good. There haven't been any unmitigated disasters when it comes to interviewing people. Yeah. I mean, some good, some mediocre. Depends, depends on the mood they're in, or
right. Oh, that dictates everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I find that some of the country stars are happier to be interviewed. They seem like they're more, open to giving you more time and things like that. So
yeah, appreciative. I like that.
But the venue I work with now, we have a lot of people coming in and out for interviews and stuff, and they always stick me on stage to do the Q&As. So I had we had Jack Douglas in and Jeff Emmerich. So, and then Jeff Emmerich came in, and I'm like, wow, I get to sit down and interview Jeff Emmerich live on stage in front of a couple hundred people, which is nice. And his memory was going, so he didn't really remember a lot, of certain places things that he had done. And,
right.
And I'm like, is it really my place to sort of like step in and say, well, Jeff, yeah, you were there, and so, because I asked him a question, I said, what was it like engineering the all those years ago session with George and Paul, and so he said, oh, I never did that session. I said, well, you did, Jeff. you did it. I said, oh, he says, wait a minute. You're right. It was at George's studio. It was at Friar Park. And then it all came back to him. So,
Well, that's why I think interviewing is so important, because we're losing so many great people who have so many great stories that haven't been told.
Yeah.
I mean,
in fact, Neil Linus was like one of the most fabulous people to talk to.
Yeah.
And if you got him away from like sort of like the formal interview, he would just go into this satirical sort of thing where he was just off on another planet.
Yeah.
And it's where his brilliance showed. And I said, this man is an absolute genius. It's a genius of what he does. And I said, I want to bottle this and put this on stage and show this to everybody, but it's a personal thing, and it wasn't, so.
Right. Yeah. We've all had those interviews where like, hey, this is off the record.
Yeah.
My interview with May Pang.
Yeah.
She goes, I'm going to give you 45 minutes and that's it. And
come on, May, give me an hour.
Well, what's funny is we started talking, but I knew what to say and what to ask. And that 45-minute interview turned into 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. May gets chatty. Don't get on the phone with her.
But what's weird is that I could only use an hour and 41 minutes because the other hour was off the record. And she goes, can I trust you? I'm like, yes, you can. And I've never released them since. So,
right.
But it's good stuff though. Good stuff. So let me ask you this, having said something like that, what artists told you the one story that you'll never forget?
Simon Kirk had a good story.
Ooh.
From Bad Company.
I know Simon. He was an all-star.
Yes, he was an all-star. So he says he's sitting there with the all-stars. I forgot. It may have been like Peter Frampton. I forgot exactly who was in his version of the all-stars.
Right.
But I think it may have been Peter Frampton and Jack Bruce.
Gary Brooker.
Right. I think those may have been the guys. Mm-hmm. So they said they're all sitting around playing cards. And Simon Kirk says to Peter Frampton, how many records did you sell in your life? And Peter Frampton says, oh, well, Frampton Comes Alive was big. He says, we may have done, over the course of my career, he says, we may have done 30 million records. He says, well, Simon, how many records did you sell with Bad Company? He says, we had to do at least, 15 or 20 million records. And, Jack Bruce, Cream, how many records did you sell? Oh, I don't know, 8 or 10 million. And they said at that point, Ringo walks in the door. And they said, Ringo, we have a question for you. They said, how many records did you sell in your lifetime? He says, 2 billion. And he walked out. They said, "Who are we? Who are we?" It just doesn't. It just doesn't equate. 2 billion records. He's right. Worldwide, it probably was 2 billion records
easily
with every,
Yeah.
So and there you see, therein lies the dichotomy of.
Yeah, talk about being put in your place, huh?
Yeah. And he says it was very, matter of fact, 2 billion.
Oh yeah, 2 billion.
Yeah.
Well, you've met a lot of great celebrities, all kinds of genres, and I mean, you've been in the business for a while. Let's talk about, let's just be honest. Greg, you could have retired into simply listening to music. Instead, you decided to build UMRK. So what itch were you trying to scratch at that time?
Oh, radio was, terrestrial radio was just dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a part of my DNA growing up with, those stations in New York, with WPLJ and NEW and ABC.
Right. WNEW.
And Big Dan Ingram on ABC. Yeah. And it's like, oh, this is all I ever wanted to do, and that top 40 thing was great because you could hear, Wings, and then you would hear Bobby Vinton, everything was sort of, and I just loved radio so much that it wasn't around anymore. And this is really like in the infancy of the internet, where there wasn't really a whole lot going on with radio, especially. Yeah. So, and I sort of managed to figure out technically how to put like a really bad delayed, like live video up on a really bad website, which I was, trying to code myself back then, which I got better at. And I decided, well, let me see if I can sort of, integrate a chat with this. We could do live requests and things like that. And it really caught on quickly. I mean, it took a couple of years, but probably by the third or fourth year, and iTunes was coming in. I had about 30,000 subscribers.
Oh, wow.
Already, just all over the world. And there's nothing like getting a message from somebody in Australia or Japan and all these different places saying, I love your show. It makes my day. And, my doctor wanted me to exercise, and I exercise on the beach listening to your show. I'm in Japan. And I said, this is really like, I said, if one person does that, it makes a world of difference to me. I don't care if it's millions of people or thousands of people, just that one person. And I said, that is enough to sort of keep me going and develop it. And I did it until 2016, and I took a break because right now I'm the archivist for Victor Entertainment, for Victor Records, for the rebranding of that. Right. So we have a lot going on with that. So I took almost 10 years to do other things, and now last year I brought the show back, and now I'm bringing it back where now you have to have apps and everything's different. Right. So, so now it's the streaming thing is completely different. So now I'm developing apps and, Alexa and all these other things where, you got to give people new platforms to listen to. Apple Music, Apple CarPlay. And I said, well, I've been taking a few weeks to sort of develop apps and things like that. But it's my love of radio. I just love old radio. I mean, and I still listen to, a lot of music, but and I love old air checks, I love old commercials. An old buddy of mine he was in your area for a while. You probably remember him, maybe from the 80s, was Big Ron O'Brien. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, Big Ron was a pal, and he had been out here in Philly and New York and stuff. And that's who I wanted to be. I said, just the way he segued things, and it just everything was it was like a chess match. Smooth. Where he had everything planned 3 moves ahead of time, and that translated into my work with my job because I do live technical directing for Victor for live shows. So everything's got to be 3 steps ahead. Yeah, everything's whether it's cameras or directing or anything like that. So. And the radio thing is the same, but I just, I love the sound and the flow and everything that went, because they said what's in between the songs is sometimes more important than what the songs are.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I just, I wanted to bring it back. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, for all you fans out there, how does someone catch your show?
Well, in a couple of different ways. I have a website, which is studio66radio.com. And all the information's on the website about social media and the apps and stuff. We do have a Facebook page with we've got an enormous number of people who found it because of the viral video that I put up.
Yeah.
So I have thousands of people pouring in there. Now I have to manage that, which is a little insane because, when you get thousands of people, you get maybe, a couple of trolls here and there.
Of course.
Where it's like, well, now I have to sort of manage this and police it. Before it was like, 600 or 700 people, and I can do this now.
Nice.
Yeah, now you got to just keep an eye on it. But studio66radio.com. You can find everything on that site. So
I highly recommend it, folks. It's a great listen. It's just not music. It's just not talk. It's like a carousel of music, humor, commercials, trivia, top 40s, #1 song of this year, and there's also bizarre stories like the desert. I like that with the phone.
Oh, the Mojave phone people. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes we just go off on, wherever we go. And I'm like, there's a phone booth in the middle of the desert that people are talking on. I said, we have to call this and figure out who it is. And now some of those people are actually listening every week.
See,
so they come back and listen every week, And
I enjoy the music that you play.
Yeah.
You play songs that slipped away from us and we forgot how it's a sinful pleasure, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend it. So what's the website again?
Studio66radio.com.
Check it out. What's the best days?
Well, my schedule is a little weird in the summer, but you can find me anywhere from Fridays to Sundays. Right now, I'm on Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
But and we got our little app thing going. We have our mailing list going, and we have our social media. You can find us on Facebook, and So,
well, I highly recommend, folks, give it one time. Just listen one time. Just listen one time. And I bet you'll be hooked because I love it. It's such a great group in the chat rooms. Everyone's so friendly and cool and funny, and you can just tell, kind of get them all in one place. Misfits and all these other groups, we're all there together, and it's great.
Yeah, occasionally we get the occasional celebrity who comes in there. Right. And they'll pop in. Paul Williams has popped in, and obscure sitcom people from the 70s pop in.
Nice.
So it's, people you don't expect. You're like, oh, is that really Billy J. Kramer? I said, yeah, it's really Billy J. Kramer. I said, we have a long history, me and Billy J. So
he's great too, man.
Yeah. He's out in your area now, so I see. He's
he is
Chicago
actually.
Guy,
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll have him on the show before you know it too.
Yeah.
Now, was there ever a defining moment when you realized if nobody else is going to make radio like I remember it, I'll do it myself?
That's it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I had, a mobile DJing background, so I would, I could get up and entertain people. So I said, the only thing is, I said, how difficult can this be? But I said, I want it to sound right. So I have a lot of outboard gear with my compressors and my limiters. Yeah. So, sometimes you see people doing radio. It's like everything is like, your mic could be here and then the music's here. And it's like,
it's all over.
Yeah. But I try and keep everything, broadcast friendly. Yep, so, the show runs 24/7 because I have all the old shows up. So when I'm not on live,
right, you can still catch an episode.
I'm on all the time. So there's about 600 shows in the rotation over the years. So sometimes, you might not catch the same show too often, depending on where it comes up in the rotation. But then, but I'm not doing as many interviews these days because I just haven't had the sort of the time to do it. But it used to be very sort of not interview heavy, but a little more,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I've always been impressed with the music that you come up with and the stories behind the songs and just the way you are very personal with your listeners. And speaking of listeners, Greg, have they ever changed your mind about a song that you didn't think too much of?
All the time. Because there's so much music that you could never listen to it in 2 lifetimes. I mean, as much as you like a particular, I mean, we're Beatle fans, so we know every little nuance of every little solo song and everything they've ever done. But you might take, I love ELO, but I don't know every single ELO song that's ever been, And I probably have listened to them all at some point, but not enough to say, well, and that somebody will request a song and I'll say, wow, there's a hidden gem.
Yeah.
Four
Little Diamonds, ELO.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I said, where did this come from? I said, I haven't listened to this in years. So I love the suggestions. So
I remember I was listening to your show.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Jimi Hendrix, Let the Good Times Roll.
Right. Yeah.
Without hesitation. Boom. You were on it, man.
And no one asks for that. And I can't think of everything. So,
well, and even in the group, the chat group, everyone's like, "What? This is a great song, man! Why didn't I know this?"
I know, isn't it wonderful to turn people onto music that sort of got lost along the way? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, now, and that makes it all worthwhile. Yeah,
radio is theater, right?
Oh yeah,
and especially like old radio, it had personality. Nothing against today's radio. I'm not putting anyone down, but to me at least, today's radio often feels like wallpaper.
Yeah.
What did we lose? How did that happen?
I think the when they started dictating the corporate playlists out of Detroit with market research groups, that may have had something to do with it. I recommend a really good book by Richard Neer from WNEW in New York. His last name is Neer, Richard Neer, former, he's still a DJ on like WFMU or something like that. He wrote a book about the rise and fall of FM radio.
Yeah.
Highly recommended book. Read that book by Richard Neer. I think that's the title of it. I have it here somewhere. I think it's called The Rise and Fall of FM Radio. Just look up Richard Neer and then you'll find it. And that book will explain everything that killed radio. So, then, I mean, it's sad now because you get artists like McCartney or somebody who'll put out something that should be played.
Right.
And who's going to play it?
Nope.
We'll play it.
Well, it's like all these great bands.
Yeah.
Like Cheap Trick. They can't even get on Billboard anymore.
No. And I like to play. I like to play a lot of local music too. If people come, people always send me submissions with, with different things, and I'd like to, and fit them in, and at least give them a little bit of a bio, and and get them in. So well, I mean, they really need to be. They need to be heard.
As a DJ, let me ask you this: is being a great DJ more about talking or knowing when to stay quiet?
Yeah, the silence, well, not silence, but the moments of, what's in between. It's like a good song. You don't want a guitar solo to go through an entire song like it's
right. It's good where it's at.
Right.
It's good in its place.
Right. And the greats are good or great at putting that silence in certain places.
Yeah.
To make everything else come alive. So it's what's in between the notes. That's why Eric Clapton is Eric Clapton, because he doesn't overwhelm you with everything. He's just But so I mean, so good. But there's a technique in radio to to do that. There's a flow with it and stuff. And you just got to keep. What I do is there's nothing pre-programmed, so it's all live.
Right.
So I mean. I may pull out a couple of requests if I get them ahead of time and put them on the side.
But
otherwise, everything's on the fly. So if you say, well, I want this song, and I said, oh, I could fit that in here, and that's going to segue nicely with this one or that one. I've got it up on the player before you're finished.
Nice. I
So,
like that.
yeah,
See?
so it's just a matter of, and if this song doesn't segue into that one nicely, we'll break it up with a jingle or an old commercial.
Yeah.
Or something, where it segues nicely, because everything segues nicely out of a jingle. So,
Right.
but not every, I'm a big fan of in key song segues.
I like that. I like
because
that.
sometimes your players will say, "Oh, this is this is in A flat, or this one's in D," or so I'm like, "Oh, I wonder if we can, match up a couple of things." So
I like that. That's
I don't know.
that's dedication, man.
Yeah.
Now,
So yeah.
let me get personal with you. Okay. Which song makes you instantly turn up the volume no matter where you are?
Oh, going to be an odd one. It's going to be an odd one. Summer Rain by Johnny Rivers.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have never thought that.
That song just sends me somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. If that song's on, and listening to my old shows, I said, boy, I've played that song a lot. Maybe I should, maybe I should temper it back a little bit and stuff. And I'm listening. I said, I played that song quite, and then people still request it,
Oh, yeah.
But that song is it's a visual thing for me. That song. Yeah.
It's a vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. That Summer of '67 is just, and my Summer of Love came much later, obviously, being being the same age as you. My Summer of Love was 86 with the Monkees reunion, but that's so
yeah.
That's for another time and place. But that whole '67 vibe thing with Johnny Rivers was just yeah.
Boy,
and
that came right out of left field. I never expected that one.
But yeah, I listen to a lot of stuff.
Oh, me too.
I mean,
there's only two kinds of music, good and bad.
Yeah.
I listen to both.
I listen to jazz, Diana Krall. Not necessarily stuff I would play,
right?
Because, people really, once in a while I'll pop something like that in if the mood is right.
Right. Yeah, it's all about segues.
Like
all about segues.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, like with me, if someone asked me that question, my first answer, and I don't know why, it's just like an instinct or, whatever. Anytime I hear Badfinger, no matter what, boom, that volume goes right up. Dun, it's coming.
Right. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, what is your biggest musical guilty pleasure that your listeners would never have ever guessed besides Summer Rain?
Artist wise or song wise?
Yeah. Song wise.
Song wise. I tend to like a lot of old country stuff.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, being cut from the Johnny Cash mold of things and the rockabilly stuff and Sun Records and stuff.
Love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I will play a little bit of, but I don't overwhelm people with it.
Right.
Because I'm a huge John Prine fan.
Oh, really?
Huge John Prine. Yeah. John Prine is one of my favorite artists of all time.
I like John Prine. Wow. Okay.
Right.
Cool.
But it doesn't always fit into what I'm doing. So, I mean, and if I play something strange from John Prine, they're like, the heck is he? What is this? What is he doing? So, but
Greg just took a left turn.
yeah, and I do take left turns, once in a while. But certain artists like that, that John Prine being one of them, because I just love that old country Hank Williams era of things, and which is where rock came out of a lot of it. So
absolutely, rockability. But, I mean, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, Roy Orbison. I mean, all those guys. My goodness.
Did you ever get to interview Carl Perkins?
No, I wish I could have, but no, I didn't.
I didn't either. I had an opportunity and I didn't want to bother him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Carl always came off as, "You don't bother me, boy. Get on over here."
I know. Yeah, he would have said that, but I didn't want to bother him at the time. I'm buddies with Marty Stewart from Nashville.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So and Marty is the unsung king of everything down there, which most people across the board really, you say Marty Stewart. Who's Marty Stewart? Well, Marty Stewart is not only one of the most amazing musicians on the planet.
Right.
He's worked with everyone.
Right.
So yeah. So little story. I had. Yeah. So a little story. I had. Like I said, I was brought up on the Johnny Cash show from ABC television. And years later, I was able to raid the ABC archive and get all those shows pre-YouTube, of course, and all that. So my wife at the time said, oh, I love Marty Stewart. Let's go see him. I said, absolutely. I said, you have to bring him something. I said, whenever you get in a fan club line or something like that, I said, you have to bring them a gift. And she says, what are you going to bring him? I said, here, bring him this. I said, give him a copy of the Johnny Cash show. He was in Johnny's band. So I said, put your phone number on it. I said, give him a VHS tape of the Johnny Cash show. It took him about 7 hours to call back and say, hi, this is Marty Stewart calling from his bus, and then this relationship happened where Marty said, look, Bob Dylan's sitting in my living room and he's loving the Johnny Cash shows you made him, And I said, I
love it.
I said, Bob Dylan's, he says, yeah, he says he doesn't want to use the furniture. And he says, well, I don't have much furniture. So he says he's sitting on the floor watching himself on the Johnny Cash show. Now, this is before everybody could really see it. Like I said, it's pre-YouTube, and things like that. So
was it readily available?
Right. And then next week he said, this person is sitting on my living room floor watching the Johnny Cash show. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. So, and then he said, oh, Carl Perkins is here watching the Johnny Cash show. And I said, huh? I froze. I said, Carl Perkins? He says, yeah, he's sitting on my living room floor. He says, I don't have any furniture. He says, they all have to sit on the floor to watch the Johnny Cash show. He says, and he's loving it. He says, you want to talk to him? I said, no, let Carl watch TV. I said, don't bother him.
Respectable. Respectable.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to, just let them be, and I didn't, I said, well, I'll tell you what, maybe Carl could sign a picture for me, which he did, nice. So that was nice.
I love Carl's laugh. He had such a hearty laugh. My God.
Well, what a great story Carl is, and there's another great book, Blue Suede Shoes by Carl Perkins. So him and the George Harrison stories are incredible. Yeah.
I love that song they did, Distance Makes No Difference.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, what a great tune.
Yeah.
I could play that one over and over. That's such a good one.
I'll play that one this week. I haven't pulled that one out in a while.
All right. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, is there a one-hit wonder that you think deserved an entire career?
Oh, man. Well, I think that one singer deserved an entire career because he had all those #1 hits with different groups, like White Plains, and I'm spacing on his name right now.
Yeah.
But he sang the lead vocals on it was 6 or 7 #1 hits in the 70s, all for one-offs, one-hit wonders.
Really?
So if you look for the singer for White Plains, and he was also in what was the other one?
Well, I'm looking up while you're talking.
Yeah. I can't think of his name.
Okay.
And this, all right. And this guy did the lead vocal on one #1 hit after another, but it was never the same group. So they would put these
Tony Burrows.
That's him. Tony Burrows. Yeah. So what's interesting was I was watching an old Top of the Pops show, and Tony Burrows came out with one group, had a #1 hit, and then came out in the second half of the show playing in another group that was a #1 hit like the previous week. So Tony Burrows, what a great story. I mean, just never in one group, just all these different groups. So
that's a great story too.
So that's kind of my one-hit wonder kind of thing. He's like the guy. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to get really personal with you here.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Brace yourself. Greg, looking back, what is the one risk that you took that changed your entire life?
Oh, okay. My very, very first girlfriend when I was about 11 years old.
Oh, okay.
Knew I was already a Beatle freak. So,
Yeah.
she knew all that and stuff. So she said, did you know that the guy who runs the film show, the Beatle film show for Beatlefest, is my next door neighbor? I said, really? I said, I'm like a kid in the candy store. So
Yeah.
she says, yeah. She says, would you like to go meet him? You know, and I'm just a little kid. I mean, it's my first girlfriend. I barely kissed her, you know? So,
Okay, yeah.
we're still friends. Yeah, we're still friends to this day, by the way, me and her.
Oh, cool.
So she introduces me to the guy who's like one of the first video and film collectors in the 1970s. And we end up becoming family friends where, you know, he was in my wedding party and, you know, it was, you know, so, and
Was
I walked
a different
over.
girl?
Yeah, different girl, you know, and she says, she introduced me. She says, oh, hi, this is Greg. He's a big Beatle fan. He's interested in collecting video. So he says, well, come on in. And I said, now I'm afraid. I said, this is the decision I have to make. I said, and this is the one that actually changed my entire life. I walked into his house and he already had a collection of video and no one had video. The only one who had video, there were probably like 3 people in the world who had this type of thing going. Wow. One of them was, Ron Furmanek from Apple and, all those things. And I said, I'm not going to bother him, even though he lived across the street from me, but he wasn't approachable at all, especially for a little kid.
Right.
But, this fine gentleman, Ron, was the video host for Beatlefest. So he said, are you interested in collecting stuff? I said, yeah. He says, hang on. He said, he went to the basement and got a big brown box, cardboard box. He threw dozens of tapes in the box, beta tapes. And he said, take these home, dub them. And he says, bring them back. So he says, if you don't bring them back, he says, I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill you. A nice thing to say to an 11-year-old, I
can just see 11-year-old Greg going,
yeah. So I took everything, stayed up all night. I dubbed everything and stuff. He started my video collection, which started the whole celebrity thing rolling.
Wow.
So, and it took off from there. Yeah.
11 years old.
Yeah. But in the interim, my uncle Dennis was John Lennon's second engineer.
Oh, you were saying that, yeah.
Yeah. So he would give me things that he would find. He would record, John and Harry drunk on a Saturday afternoon in the studio and stuff. And he says, no one else has taped this. He says, it's my tape. He says, nice. Would you like it? I said, would I like it? I said, I would love it. So he would give me these things.
Yeah.
And all this together started just, rolling along. And,
wow. Here we are today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. So that was a big risk for 11-year-old Greg to walk into this stranger's house.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I can't explain being in the right place at the right time.
Once again.
You remember the group, the New York Dolls.
Oh yeah, of course.
And David Johansen and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
David lived in my closet for a few months.
Really?
Yeah, my brother tended to bring like strange people home, and David decided he was going to take up residence in this big walk-in closet, and left his guitar behind, and then walked out and didn't come back for a while. And I said, I think I'd like to learn to play that guitar. And I'm 6.5, 7 years old, and he left his guitar behind, and I'm plunking out chords and learning how to play on David Johansen's guitar, which is, amazing by itself.
Right.
And then he comes back in 6 months to move out and takes his guitar with him. My dad says, well, I guess I got to buy you a guitar. So, ended up becoming a musician, and between, having a family in the business, and being in New York was like essential to everything, because not being in the New York area, I never would have met all the people that I did.
It was the center of the universe at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah. And for an
enterprise, John wanted to be there.
Yeah, and for an enterprising little kid like me,
enterprising, I like that.
Who I wanted to get into all these little Beatles circles, ended up becoming friends with David Peel of all people.
Oh gosh.
You know, and I did an album with David Peel, and you know, it was just it just all worked. You know, it's that New York vibe that all worked with everything. You know, if I had been
like
in
a movie,
you know, if I had been in the,
should make a movie.
if I had been in Nebraska, this wouldn't have happened.
Oh no, not at all. You were right place, right time.
Because May's from the area, and David is from the area, and Jack Douglas, and everybody is from, you know, within a 20-minute ride of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and here the biggest film collector out of Apple, doing the Apple archive, lives 6 houses down, right across the street from me.
Wow.
You know, and I said, small world.
Destined. You know? It was destined to be.
Yeah.
Now, hearing all this incredible right place, right time after time after time after time, if teenage Greg, or I should say maybe even 11-year-old Greg, could see today's Greg, what would surprise him the most?
What would surprise the earlier one?
Yes.
How quickly you've turned gray. where did my beautiful brown hair go? So I'm not that much different than what I was.
Yeah.
So you know, I still have a juvenile sense of humor about everything, you know. So
I think that's why we get along so good, you and I.
I mean, other than like physical changes, I have not changed. You know, I've evolved musically because I found more stuff.
Right.
But you know, and now I've got, you know, better equipment to listen to it on. You know.
Right.
So, but I'm basically the same. I'm, you know, in here I'm still 16.
Right.
So, you know, even if I can't get off the floor sometimes like I want to, you know, I can't.
Yeah, you can't go to Marty's house and sit on the floor to watch.
The floor. No, he's got furniture now, so I think he's doing a lot better. Yeah, he's doing a lot better. But,
well, I'm glad to hear that, Marty. We love you.
Yeah.
Well,
but I never would have. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. You would have never what?
Yeah. I never would have thought I would have been in the places that I was in.
Yeah.
You know, just in those situations, you know. Growing up, you think you're going to be in the same room with Paul McCartney. You know, you're going to meet Johnny Cash. You know, you're going to meet these people, or you know, you can visualize it, which I think was, you know, maybe had something to do with it, because, you know, but who would think that, you know, you just end up in these situations, you know?
Right.
But sometimes you just have to take advantage of the moment, you know. And, you know, I really, you know, I was such a fan of John Prine. I said, oh, I would love to, you know, have a meeting with, or an interview with him someday. And turns out Marty was best friends with him. So I said, Marty, can I, you know? So he says, yeah, you know, you can go on my dime, and, you know, I'll introduce you and everything else. So
all about networking, you know, isn't it?
Yeah, it's networking, you know, and you know, and to this day, if Marty needs something, and he's always said, well, I can't find that record, or I can't find this record, you know, and then I go into the Victor vault and stuff, and he wants these old records from the 20s, and you know, he says, oh, I just love to hear these things. And, you know, he's such a historian with music that, you know, it's a funny story with Marty. He says, well, when he grew up, he says he had 2 records. He had Meet the Beatles, and he had a Lester Flat record, and he decided he didn't want anything to do with Meet the Beatles. So he says he got rid of his Beatle record, and he went the country route. And it turns out, but everybody in his band are huge Beatle fans. So they said, Marty, you really have to like get into this stuff and listen to it. So he says, all right, I'll give it a shot. And he says, let's see what these Beatles are about. I mean, this is like not even like, you know, 30 years ago. This is recent, within the past couple of years. And he says, all right, I'll give the Beatles a shot. And he says, I never realized what they were.
Yeah.
He says, I didn't know. You know, he says, now I'm catching on to it.
Right.
You know,
and once you catch it, you never lose it.
No, but I mean, it's the Beatles have influenced everything in my life. My older son's named Donovan because when I interviewed Donovan, he was being born for a Beatle thing. So it's just, you know, I had met my wife, then wife, at a Beatle fest. it's just everything is 6 degrees of Beatle separation.
Oh, it's all connected.
Everything. And I'm
I
still
have a
connected.
daughter named Sadie.
There you go. And I'm still
and a son named
connected.
Dylan.
I'm still connected with the kid. Now he's not a kid anymore. He's my age. Who
Right.
loaned me the 2 records from school, the Red and Blue albums.
Oh, really?
And I said to him last week, I said, it's your fault. I said, it's all your fault. And he says, I'm happy. He says that I started you on this journey. And he says, but you've just continued it. And he says, you just keep going with it. And I said,
stopped.
There are pivotal moments like that
Yeah.
where something will just change your life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
You
a
know,
good way of putting it.
I heard those Red and Blue albums and I'm like, where's this been my whole life? You know?
They were a big influence on me too. And when you
Yeah.
mentioned Red and Blue, man, I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
That's our
'Cause we're the
generation.
same age. Yeah.
Yeah. That's our generation. And a lot of people caught on to those albums. And then I said to my brother, you have any Beatle albums in that collection? Oh, yeah, here's A Hard Day's Night, you know, and here's this, and here's that.
Yeah.
So he says, well, you might want to listen to some Lou Reed too,
Ah,
you know, which it didn't grab me as much. But
right. At the time, I could
Yeah.
see. Well,
Yeah.
Greg, let me ask you this. Okay. Outside of the music, what are you passionate about that most listeners don't know?
outside of the music, what do you mean? Just in life in general?
Life in general, something that you're
Oh,
passionate
boy.
about that no one has any idea.
Well, you're from Chicago. I can't tell you that because I'm a big New York Mets fan.
Okay. No, that's okay. I'm a
Well,
Cubbies fan. You know,
yeah,
it's
I like-
all
I like-
location.
I like suffering, you know?
As a Cubs fan, so do I.
Yeah. In fact, I was just listening to Steve Goodman earlier.
Oh,
with,
okay.
you know, the blues. When is it? What did it go? Was do they still play the blues in Chicago when the Cubbies come around to play? So, but
Well,
no,
since we won a World
yeah.
Series, we're
Yeah.
a little bit better
Yeah.
now, I guess.
but no, but no,
I get to see it
I'm
in my
passionate.
lifetime.
Yeah. I'm passionate about just doing the right thing for people, helping people out, and if I can
Right.
provide a little bit of free entertainment, you know, that
Yeah.
the radio thing works. You know, if you're having, you know, someone came into the chat room last week, one of their best friends had died. I said,
Mhm.
let's forget it for a few hours and, you know, let's divert and, you know, and if I
It's
can
an
change
escape.
that, if I can make that person escape for 3 or 4 hours, I said, I'm satisfied. Yeah. So, I mean, I just got to help people, you know, it's what I do, you know, that's part of being a reverend. I like to marry people.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
26 years marrying people now. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Time flies.
50 years from now, we'll say, speaking of time, 50 years from now, someone discovers UMRK broadcast. What do you hope that they say after listening?
What is radio? What is this? Well, people actually listen to something that was just in the air. You know, it wasn't, you know, what is this? You know, I mean, you know, I'm sure some of the 50 years from now, you know, the Beatles music still obviously still going to be somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and but the vehicle to bring it to everybody, who knows what it's going to be? It could be virtually implanted in your head.
Yeah.
Who knows what the what it's going to be? You know, especially with AI and everything else
Right.
that's, you know, moving towards all that. But yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, in my job right now, I'm surrounded by Victrolas.
Right.
You know, from all eras, you know.
Yeah.
And the other day, one came in. It was the first record changer from 1928, an acoustic Victrola, the size of a Volkswagen. You know, so in 1928, this would have been about $20,000. So you could have figured who could afford it in 1928.
Right.
And so we took an old 78, put it on there off the first drop record player. It dropped it in off this little acoustic speaker, and it sounded like it came from another planet. You know, it was just so good. Just this one little monophonic speaker.
Yeah.
Just incredible listening to, like, whatever the record was, a Rudy Valley record or whatever it was. And I appreciate that so much because more than 50 years on now, I'm looking back at that and saying, well, this is what they used to, you know, to listen to things. If, you know, for the few
Mono was king.
Yeah. I mean, who could afford this thing in the first place? But to hear this, like, just untouched, pure acoustic sound from this magnificent piece of furniture that wasn't plugged in anywhere because it wasn't electric, you know, just incredible. And so 50 years from now, who knows what the technology is going to be and stuff, but they're going to look back and say, hopefully, you know, the Internet Archive will save whatever we save. I tried to save everything on hard drives, you know. Just the films and videos and, you know, and more than I could watch or listen to, like I said, in this lifetime. It just, you can never get to it all. How 4 guys can make so much content is beyond me. It's just, you know, the most photographed 4 people in history. It's just, you know, absolutely incredible of the sheer amount of content that 4 individuals named John, Paul, George, and Ringo could have brought to the world, and still, it still translates. Yeah, it's incredible. So, you know,
we're still talking about the Beatles 60 years later.
Yeah. And
that's amazing.
I still think in 30 or 40 years, it's going to, you know, I mean, obviously our generation's going to come and go, but I have a younger son who's 27. And the other day he came down and he says, "What are you playing? Dark Side of the Moon?" I said, "Yeah." He sat and listened to the whole thing with me.
Nice.
So beginning to end, Dark Side of the Moon. So for Christmas, I got him his first mono white album, and he's 27. So we sat there and listened to the entire mono white album, start to finish, and it's an experience.
It is.
And the fact that, you know, my son is 27 is finding this stuff and has such a wide. I mean, he knows music that I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of contemporary stuff that, you know, that I don't know, but he's finding all this old stuff. And then when he's like, and he doesn't know all of it yet, but when he's, you know, and he says, "Well, what's that you're playing?" "Oh," I says, "Belinda Carlisle from the 80s. He says, "I kind of like this," you know? So he finds all this new stuff on my show that he would never find. So, you know, I mean, obviously my demographic is, you know, not 20-year-olds.
No.
Although
they could get a kick out of it, though, I would say.
Yeah, but you know, it's, you know, people my age, your age.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know.
Well, you know, speaking of people our age, you know, to me, let me see if we are in agreement with this. I grew up listening to vinyl records, and sometimes you listen to your vinyl, but what I was saying is our generation, we listen to records, sometimes by ourselves in the speakers or with headphones. And then there are other times, like with your son, you share the listening experience together. It was an event. It was a happening. It was something special. I feel today's generations, they don't share the music like we used to.
Yeah,
would you
it's
agree?
more of a personal thing. Yeah. When we were kids, you know, you would sit down on, you know, and play an album, and everybody would listen to it, and, you know, we'd turn it over, and we all listen to side 2.
And of course, you had the people who scribbled their names on the record label so no one would steal it.
Yeah,
that's making it collectible.
I like that with my kid, where, you know, he'll find something, and, you know, he's like, he loves Oasis, big Oasis fan.
Oh yeah,
so
good band.
yeah, and then you know, I said, "Oh, I'm not familiar with that one," and, you know, and he'll play it. So, you know, he's got his own turntable set up. I've got him, you know, I've got him cooking with that. Got his, you know, his little receiver amplifier. So,
so let me ask you this question: if your grandchildren one day come up to you and ask, "Grandpa, why did you spend your life playing music for strangers?" what would your answer be?
I couldn't think of a better thing to do for people.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Music is happiness. It's
It
you
is.
know,
It's
it takes
therapy.
it's memories. I mean, all we have are memories, and it takes you to a
Mhm.
place. You know, the only other thing I think is powerful is that, or you smell a scent from your childhood or something like that, and it immediately takes you back.
Boom. Yep.
But music is I don't relate to people who don't feel that.
Yeah.
So some people are like, music, I don't care, I don't listen to it. But sadly, we've gotten away where people have to listen on little phones with tiny little
Right.
speakers, unless you've got
Right.
some sort of nice little head setup going on with earbuds or something like that. But I'm a sound guy. I love good sound. I love vintage sound. I love good sound.
I love good production too.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah.
Good production goes a long way with me. If music has taught me one thing, it's if you finish the sentence there. If music has taught me one thing, it's
that the past and the present are not separated. They're still here.
Ooh.
Just because you can instantly go anywhere you want to go through any type of music you want to listen to. There's It's not 30 years ago. It's not 40 years ago. It's not 10 minutes ago. It's still here. It's still here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Greg, I really like that. I like that. Man,
Yeah.
is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah.
I like that.
It's the best way I use that. The best way I could put it. It's just, timeless. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
music is the conduit for my time travel.
And your show is a time traveling machine, if you would. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. I've got maybe just a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap it up here. So let's see.
I mean, I can't allude to a lot of certain things because of NDAs, but we have some really, really nice stuff coming up.
Really?
That Beatle fans are going to love.
Oh, I like hearing that.
Yeah. Our timing has been a little suspect because of other projects happening, and that got in the way a little bit. But within the next 2 years, you're going to be seeing something that will really raise your eyebrows as a Beatle fan.
Ooh, I like that. So a little teaser there, if you will.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what, Greg, you've been nothing but fantastic, and I love your insights. I'm glad we finally got to talk and hook up a little bit here, and I'm sure we're going to be doing some things in the future together. You never know. But
absolutely.
With all this talk about the music and the memories and the celebrities and the stories and everything mixed in, once again, let's make the listeners aware of how they can check out your show and when they can hear it. And how do they find you?
Website is studio66radio.com, studio66radio.com. And you can find all the information. The live link is on there. The apps are on there. The social media is on there. The crazy stories and the history are on there with our zany little crew that we have with our show. So, our famous weather girl and everybody else is in there. So studio66radio.com. We're working on the Google Android app, which I'm still waiting on the approval of. The Apple app is cooking. So we're good with that. We're good with Alexa. We're good with TuneIn and all those things in the car. So you can find us in like eight different places. Just that Google has been a little tough on their policies of developing new apps. So it takes a few weeks to get through their approval process. But I will put that link up shortly.
Cool.
But studio66radio.com, everything's there. Send us some requests, say hi, stop in the chat during a show, anything you like. We're a bunch of friendly people who are, non-judgmental about anything. We love music and stuff, and
a
even
good
if
laugh
you're
in memory lane.
Right. And sometimes even if your music doesn't fit in exactly with what our sort of decades are and things, we fit it in somewhere, you know. We'll put it in, you know. There's some contemporary things in there. There's things in there from the 1800s. There is, you know, we really will play a little bit of anything. We just find the right place to play it. So
yeah. Well, is there a message that you would like to say to your current listeners of your radio station?
Yeah, just thanks for listening. You know, thanks for popping in every week. It means a lot to me, and it keeps everybody going. You know, we're listener supported, so you're not going to hear any new ads. The only commercials you're going to hear are old ones for, you know,
the old jingles.
The old jingles, and Del Shannon doing a Pepsi ad from 1965 or something like that.
I love it.
You know,
I love it.
So not too much of that stuff, but enough to break it up and, you know, and make it interesting with, you know, and then, you know, as we interview celebrities and stuff, I always like to get them to do sound drops and say, hey, look, you know, listen to this and stuff. So, you know,
right.
You know, sometimes they regret doing it. Sometimes they don't, you know. I had asked Burton to do a couple of sound drops, and I said, just do one or two. So he did like a dozen, and he sent them all over to me. And he said, oh, I was in the studio. He says, but I was half drunk doing it. And he says, I don't think you should play them. And I have played every single one of them because they were just so good, you know. Hi, this is Burton. He says, if you don't listen, and he says, I'm going to find you. He says, I'm going to hunt you down and I'm going to kill you.
You've heard it before.
So, yeah. You know, so I said, no, I've got to play that, you know. So just, you know, so.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's great when you know, I like having celebrities to kind of like pop in and just, you know, even sometimes if you're just like totally obscure, you're like, I haven't heard of that person since 1979. I said, what are they doing there? I said, that, you know, so, but if you know, you know.
Well, that's the thing. You never know who's going to end up popping up into your show. And that's what I like about that too. It's never the same show twice.
Yeah,
and it's just good fun. And it's a trip down memory lane with good friends and great music and fun times.
Cool. I feel like I'm talking to a brother from another mother here. So we're like, you know, it's kindred spirits. So
right on, man.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yep.
Well, Greg, I want to thank you once again for your time and your patience and your wonderful insights and the stories. We're definitely going to have to hook up and focus just on a few stories in greater detail. But boy, this right here for an intro, I thought, wow, this is a great interview. I enjoyed the stories. Cool. I enjoy your radio station. I enjoy you.
Right.
So
thank you.
I just want to say this interview has been so much more than a conversation, folks. This has been more than a conversation about radio. It's a reminder that while technology may change, passion never goes out of style.
Yeah, good point. Yep.
And you know, in a world driven by playlists, algorithms, and artificial intelligence, Greg, you've continued to do something beautifully human. You've connected people.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, keep it organic. That's what we do. So,
well, and you've preserved musical history. You reminded us, the voice behind the microphone still matters. And UMRK isn't simply just another internet radio station. It's truly a time machine. It's a gathering place. It's proof that personality, storytelling, and genuine love for music will always find an audience. And I want to thank you for preserving a style of broadcasting that inspired so many of us to fall in love with radio in the first place. Well, radio today is lacking that.
Yeah.
Now, Greg, may your microphones always be staying warm. May your playlist always surprise us.
Right.
And
may
the Beatles always kick off another unforgettable Sunday night.
Yeah. Sounds good.
And may the music continue to bring people together. Yep. One great song at a time.
Well,
Reverend Greg Schmidt, thank you once again for spending some time with us, man.
Thank you for having this great platform, for doing what you do, and bringing everybody together. I mean, We all
Hey,
work together, and
that's it.
your part is just as important, and is everything else. So you're the glue, man. Keep it going.
Hey, we're all together
Yeah.
in this. Hey, you know what? For you folks out there checking out this interview and listening, some advice I think we could give you is keep the music playing, keep discovering those forgotten gems, and above all, keep making memories, folks.
Yeah.
I'm James D. Jones of the Magical Mystery Tour, Beatle Years and Beyond for Beatles-A-Rama Radio and TV. And we've had Reverend Greg Schmidt with us. I want to thank you once again. And folks, until next time,
Right.
take care, beware, and comb your hair. And I'll see you all down the avenue. And it's been a real pleasure. Thanks again, Greg.
Same here. Thank you.
All right. And
See you.
thank you. And there.